Solid road duties. It's a nice road sweater.
Oh. That was bad.
Sorry, we're good now. And that was on air. Sorry, guys. That was cool.
Is it started?
We're up. Yeah, we're ready to roll. You're on, Jeff.
All right, welcome to a very special Wild Wednesday on a Tuesday night. We are live at Fan HQ, Ridgedale Mall, and there's quite a buzz. There's quite a crowd here.
Place is crazy.
The line's pretty much out the door. The Wild Wednesday crew -1 this week. I'm Jeff Dubay along with Scott Schweitz, Jason McGovern. Also here, Tony Dean absent. We're poorer for his absence. He'll be back with us next Wednesday when we're back into our regular time slot. But we are here for a special reason tonight. Thomas Vanek is here at Fan HQ signing autographs and taking photos with the Rubes here at Ridgedale Mall. And we're going to get a chance to talk to the newest member of the Minnesota Wild, the Wild Winger. He's not the newest member anymore, is he? Ryan Carter is, technically. But we'll have him on here momentarily. It's got a weird weekend. The Anaheim game, and again, we'll have to just switch gears here and go to him on the fly at any moment. But the Anaheim game was a little frustrating. Scott Schweitz joining me here on this Wild Wednesday. That the penalties in the second period. I mean, they played a really good, solid, aggressive first period. The penalties in the second period just kind of disjointed the attack. I thought kind of slowed the game and kind of slowed the momentum. They were spending just so much time on the penalty kill. They weren't playing badly. I don't even think they played badly technically in the third period, but when you get in the better of the play the way they were in the first, and then for good chunks of the second. You got to get that separation goal. They just never got that.
Well, I think the biggest thing is just and from my perspective, watching the game is just the finishing. You have so many opportunities, and I was watching at home on the couch, and it was just, I think I swore enough at the TV that probably make my TV feel bad, but truthfully, it was. I think there was a big thing to do with the fact that they had such a long period of time away from the game and away from that kind of environment. I mean, they had good control of the play. I mean, that's our team, our overall team vibe, and we have a good possession percentage. But pucks going off sticks, shanking pucks wide, missed passes, missed opportunities from a number of people. I mean, I tweeted out that I thought for sure that Pominville had caught the Brodziak bug. Because he was getting snake bit in front of the net left and right. But just the overall failure to finish would have completely changed the whole feel of the game and the whole momentum of the game if they would have put a couple of those in. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about missed opportunities because it would have been a W, and that would have been it.
It was awfully disappointing to wind up getting out of that game, not just with the loss, but not even getting the cheap point. They couldn't get the cheap point. They're two tough regulation losses. We're about to get Thomas to sit down here and we're going to talk a little while.
Man of the hour is about to sit down.
It's perfect time. This works just fine.
Yep, grab those headphones.
Right here.
Yep, you're right on that mic. You're all up.
All right.
Thomas Vanek joining us. Wild Wings. What is that?
There. Yeah, there you go. Wow, yeah, don't ever put headphones right up next to the mic.
And now we're good.
Ooh. That's better. Thomas, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take a little time. We only have a few minutes and time for a few questions with you, but I want to start out with a little anecdote. Something a little anecdotal. I know you know who Nate Miller is, right?
Yep.
And Nate was in the movie Miracle. Have you heard this story about Kurt Russell, how it relates to you in the New Hampshire game?
No, I don't know.
Okay, well, but Nate was shooting the movie Miracle. It was 2003. Kurt Russell's the only star.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only guy who's got a trailer. He's got cable, he's got dish, whatever.
Okay.
And the guys are out on the ice. They're very careful in how they're orchestrating the on-ice scenes. They're trying to make it as realistic as they can. Kurt Russell's in his trailer watching the New Hampshire game, and he knows Nate's a gopher. And he comes busting out of his trailer. Like the door comes flying open, and Kurt Russell comes just barreling out of his trailer, going, Nate! And Nate's out on the ice trying to shoot a scene, and he comes running out to say, you should have seen Vanek. Vanek just came in, he held it, and he acted out the goal for Nate, because he knew that Nate cared, and Nate was a captain, for God's sake, he wore the C. And so he's on the ice saying, Vanek, he held it, airs went down, and he held it, and he just kind of slid it on. So, Kurt Russell acted out your goal for Nate Miller while they were shooting the movie Miracle.
That's pretty cool. I never knew that.
He likes to tell the story, and I know he tells it better than I do. But I mean, we're talking about a friend of mine, Lucia's first captain, by the way, here in that Nate. I don't know if you ever met him or not, but I mean, to get a chance to be in that movie had to be a big deal.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, it was great history, great movie. I mean, both.
Yeah, and now you've been immortalized by Kurt Russell. But hey, we only have a few minutes with you, so let's get to what's going on the ice. Last year, the Wild, we saw this team outplay a lot of teams, outshoot a lot of teams, outpossess a lot of tees, and not finish. Well, I mean, what a frustrating weekend it had to be for you guys along those same lines.
It's frustrating, but to me it's positive because if we can play like this 90% of the time, we'll win a lot of games. So again, for myself and the team speaking, I mean, it's like you said. I think when you put up 40+ shots, you expect more than a goal.
But Quick's good.
He was good, but I think we made him look good too. So I think again, it's just I know we talk about chemistry a lot, but chemistry does go a long way, and I think we're getting closer to it.
So, based upon chemistry, this is going to be the fourth person that you're going to play with now that Coyle's going to be up on the second line. So you started out with Matt Cook. We had Jason Zucker in there that you teed up with a beautiful setup, and then you had Fontaine. So now we roll into Charlie Coyle, which is a completely different player, bigger body. He's going to be able to dig things out of the corner. How do you feel about that, and how do you think that's going to change the dynamic on the second line?
Well, I think it's one of the main reasons that I signed here. It just shows you the depth. I mean, within a couple of weeks, I think we're rotating in and out guys, and I don't know if whoever the solution is. I don't think it's up to one guy. I think we're going to rotate in and rotate out, and it might be me going down, it might be me going up, but whatever it is, I think it's going to take some time. But Charlie, like I said, he's one of the most powerful guys I've ever played with. I mean, and for his age, what he's doing, I think. I mean, his upside is tremendous. So I'm looking forward to playing with him.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I was a little surprised personally when I read it today. I thought Nino would be the guy that they'd rotate up, just because from my perspective, I think his skill sets complement yours and Mikko's a little bit more. Mikko's a good pivot. He likes to dish, and I think you can do it both ways. You're a finisher, and you can also set guys up. Where Nino seems to have that more of a goal scorer shooter mentality, similar to that of like Zucker. So it was a little surprising to me.
Right, but I think that the way I look at it, I mean, if you can have a line with two guys that are going good, I think the third guy just needs to be complement, and then if you have three guys like our top line is right now who can all feed of each other, it works. And I think with Nino and Hala, they're good together. So why break something up that's working? So I think I do think Nino is a good fit, but again, Nino is a smart player, and then I'm sure we'll all play with him at some point, I would guess.
Hey, Thomas, we got a whole group of people that are dying to get your autograph. So just one last thing before we let you go. How done of a deal was this ahead of time? I mean, Lou Nanny told me a year ago. He told me a year ago, there's no way Thomas doesn't sign him. I mean, a year ago, he just said, Jeff, just read my lips. He's coming. I mean, there's all there was to it. I know it's never that simple. Yeah, it's never that simple. But I mean, this was kind of a slam dunk, wasn't it?
Well, again, I think a year ago I made a choice to go to free agency, and that was nothing against the teams I played for, and there was quite a few of them last year. It was just I wanted to experience free agency in my career, and definitely the Wild were high on my list for many reasons.
Well, you miss Pops. You miss hanging out with Patolny.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I mean, just being close back to the U is nice. But no, again, I like what they're building here, what we're building here, and I think we have the pieces in place to be a very good team.
You have had any chances to get over to check out the squad this year, you think, at Mariucci? You're going to make some appearances?
That's one of the bonuses of being back. I think I haven't been back to Mariucci. I mean, I go back every summer to skate, but not see him in action. So, I'll be back, I'm sure, many weekends.
Yeah, I think they'll remember you. You'll get a few back pats when you walk through the door.
Let's hope so.
All right, Thomas, thanks for your time. I know these people are just dying to get to you, so we don't want to take up any more of your time.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
It's great to meet you. Thank you. It's Thomas Vanek, Minnesota Wild Wing. Obviously a member of the 2003 national champions, an outstanding player of the Frozen Four, most outstanding player. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks. And of course, a Facebook friend of mine. I got to throw that in there.
Close personal friend.
No, he's a good guy. Good guy. Boy, this is really something else. Were you expecting this? I mean, this kind of a crowd, Scott? I mean, I know you're not the radio veteran that I am, so maybe you were thinking a lot.
It's funny because out of all of us, I'm more of the on the fan rube side of anything, considering. Had season ticket holder for so long and growing up playing hockey, but
you wanted to ask him for an autograph, didn't you?
Well, I asked you. I'm like, should I be that guy that shows up with the 26 jersey on, or should I be the guy that plays it cool? And I mean, it's a new experience.
I would have made funny if you wanted.
Yeah, probably right. I showed him the picture. I showed him that made him laugh is last year. I had a guy in front of me in line in the concession stand with a Vanek 26 jersey on, and I tapped him on the shoulder. I'm like, That's ballsy. I'm like.
Oh, that's from a year ago?
We are still in
before the
last
trade.
season. No, before the free agency.
Oh, yeah.
But so he went ahead and went and had the Hockey Lodge make him a jersey of Vanek 26, and the Hockey Lodge is like, can we do this? Right now we have Molson as 26, but whatever. I mean, I guess we'll do it. And
you paid the dollar.
And I'm like, wow, like he was the first one. And I'm like, well, I'm hoping that $200 investment works out for you.
Well, and it really was at least a year ago, if not longer. Lou Nanny did a weekly bit with Judd and I on 1500, and Lou just, on the air, not off the record, on the air, said, guys, I can't stress this enough. It's a done deal. Vanek will be here next year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Nobody's making any. They'll get the hometown discount they need. They'll get the score they need. And I mean, when Lou Nanny speaks, people listen. He is the E.F. Hutton of the Minnesota hockey world.
Well, did you see the smile when you asked him? The smile on Vanek's face was.
Yeah, he knew.
This thing has been.
But that started
in the stars for. This is years in the making.
Well, and that goes back to the Parisian Suitor when they basically came back here and understood what we were bringing and what it's not just the marquee players. It's not just the high end players. It's the fact that our cupboard was stacked. And I really think that that's how they sold this to Parisian Suitor back when. They said, hey, look what we got coming. Yeah. And then when it came to Vanek, it was the same thing. It was like, now we got great top-end guys, but we also have, the second, third, fourth line deep guys that can basically fill in, and they're going to be good for many, many years to come. So it's just a matter of selling that. And obviously it helps the fact that, his house is in Stillwater. Yep. He was a Gopher. Yep. He knows Minnesota. His wife's from Minnesota. But no competitive player is going to come to a place just for that. They want to win, and they eventually want to raise the cup.
Sure. And you know what? There is still a closeness with the guys who played together at the U back in those days. The Patalny, Kowalska, Riddle group. He's playing with Ballard. Right now. These are guys. Leo. Although Leo was 02. He's still obviously. They all know each other. They all skate together in the off season, things of that nature. And it's a real family kind of a vibe, and that they all come back to every summer and skate at Mariucci or Ritter, whatever. There's just not to mention again, like you said. He lives in Stillwater, for God's sake. How great is it to just? Can you imagine? If you're a guy who's playing a sport that takes place basically throughout the school year, what a pain in the ass. You got kids. You're a dad. You got to take your kids out of school. You got to get them into school. You got whatever. It's just. The whole thing's got to tear at you. Either being with your family or having your family, in transit, uprooted, whatever, this town, that town. And I really thought people were way too critical of Thomas's game, basing it on what he did or did not give Montreal in the playoffs.
And that's the thing. You start out with somebody who's been in Buffalo his whole career, and then he gets moved to the Islanders, for some pieces, and then Gar Snow realizes, he's not signing here.
So they didn't give up that much.
So I gotta basically get something for him.
Help me out.
They got a first. They gave up a first round, and then I think, and then the Islanders also gave up Molson.
Oh yeah.
And then Molson came here. It was kind of like a 3 degrees of separation.
Yep.
But then when they realize that they've offered him some good money and he doesn't take it, then they have to dish him again to Montreal and obviously take quite a lower return on their investment, which is a lot of times what people are like, well, why didn't we just go after him then as opposed to going for Molson?
Yeah. But if you're going to get him as a free agent,
they always knew.
He gave up the assets for Molson anyways. Why not get Vanek ahead of the time?
I guess I'm trying to come up with an answer. Maybe Garth Snow's just such a dick. Seriously.
Well, he did give us Nino.
Well, yeah, he did.
He's probably like, I've given you enough. I'm not giving you anymore.
You could say give with a capital G.
Mm-hmm.
It was the gift that keeps on giving. It was Christmas every day when you get rid of Clutterbuck.
Should probably poll some of these fans and be like, who misses Clutterbuck? Can I get a show of hands?
Seriously. Well, you know what? The thing is, I think the fans.
I think they would say yes.
A lot of fans were really taken in by his garbage. He'd get the meaningless hit, and they did all ooh and ah, like they were watching fireworks or something. That's what he did. He went out and picked out a guy whose head was down. Go pick him off right after he gives up the puck in a meaningless hit, just to build stats and get the crowd to ooh and ah. And I think a lot of rubes kind of fell for his for a while. I think they fell for the shtick.
I would say the casual fan falls for the shtick, but the fan that knows what they're talking about and knows what they're looking for is going to see through that and see obviously the value that somebody like a Nino Niederreiter brings to the table. It has such a higher upside and brings a higher pedigree of talent to our squad.
You know what I think is interesting, guys, is, I mean, the Kings, I mean, we're looking at it, 2 of the last 3 years, Stanley Cup champion. I think Quick is the best goaltender in the world right now. If he's not, he's certainly the best American goaltender. I mean, he's certainly an elite goaltender. He had a 40-save performance, to beat him the other day. And instead of taking the easy out, saying, we went up against a good team and a good goaltender back, said, hey, we made him look good. I mean, we shot into the belly, shot into the pads,
Whip.
Didn't get enough credit, not enough traffic, enough second chances, didn't take his eyes away, whatever. I mean, he put it on himself, put it on the team.
And that's really what it comes down to, is you have to capitalize on those opportunities, and you have to capitalize
I have
on.
to pee. What do we do when I have to go to the bathroom, Sean? Give me a bottle.
And it's just
Ahead.
Jason and I are going to roll with it, I guess. Maybe Jeff will just go quiet for a while, and you'll know where he went. But no, I really think that's it. Is you can make somebody look good all day long, but you put one past them, and it's like what I said earlier.
Yeah.
All that stuff is forgotten if we pull one win out of those two.
Well, you know what really hurt? What really hurt to me is not even getting the cheap point in either game. I mean, I was feeling good about the fact that they didn't give up a cheap point to Colorado. But then they turned around and didn't get any on the road either. I mean, you want to at least get it to overtime.
If you're gonna not, I mean,
both 1-goal games too.
I was gonna say, I mean, you want to pull the points out of anywhere you can pull it out of. But I mean, it is the West Coast. I mean, at least we're not doing it against Central teams.
There are no panic alarms going off.
No,
that better not
absolutely not.
No, and the people that are doing that, I think, are completely. I mean, just they don't understand the game. I mean, They got so, and and this is where my fan comes in. After the first couple of games, I mean, I was jacked up.
Oh, they're going to win the cup.
Yeah, we
were
were
first game. They're going to win the cup. We all kind of fell into it.
You know what? The LA game, the game against the Kings, was the second best game they've played this year out of the 4. That's the second best game behind.
Well, it shows the difference of talent too of the teams that you went against. You went against a Colorado team that. It was exposed. I mean, it was exposed for a team that is not going to be as good as it was last year.
And I think they're still a really good matchup for you. I mean, they're tailor-made for you if you're the Wild. You take them all day.
I mean, of course you want to take them, but a team like an Anaheim and an LA that bring the size, that bring a little bit more of that grit to the table is going to be a little different game for the Wild to have to play and have to score and get ahead of the game, so they're not going to get kind of bogged down with that style. Which I thought, by the way, at the end of the game, I thought it was a really, really big cheap shot to take against who was it?
And which game?
The end of the Anaheim game.
The one where Parise went after him?
Parise and Suter both.
Yeah.
They went after him, and they went after.
I can't remember who the hit was on.
Did they go against Granlund?
That might have been it.
They tried to hit Granny, and I think it was it Getzlaf?
You know what? I turned it off.
I Getzlaf so much I would remember that. I don't think it was Getzlaf.
So basically what I loved about it is the fact that Parise and Suter both jumped in at him.
That's how
and grabbed him and pulled him out of there. And basically, like, Parise got a game misconduct.
Yep.
And now it's going to bug me that I can't think of the guy's name.
No, I turned it off by that. I do remember, though, earlier in the game, the fracas in, I think it was the second period, behind the net, where Coyle came jumping in. And, I'm not, going to start the Ryan Getzlaf fan club or anything, but he got Coyle. Like, Coyle was on his knees, and he had him by the jersey, and he had his right arm, ready to blast him. And Coyle was kind of in almost in a cover and duck position. And I went on Twitter and just said, classy move by Getzlaf not to throw a punch.
And it was, and I'm going to correct myself. It wasn't Getzlaf at the end of the game. It was Kessler.
There you go.
Okay.
So Kessler took a straight up, like, from mid-ice to the boards. I mean, he almost did like a repeat of Eric Johnson's hit on Haula. And he smoked Granlund.
The puck was gone for a while.
Yeah, and it was the end of the game. And Parise and Suter both were right there, and they realized, like, all right, this is not acceptable. And they jumped in. And I saw just an onslaught of comments about the fact that you have your two captains that get in there, two guys that are non-players of that type that get in and try to mix it up, that are going and defending your one of your smaller talented guys.
Well, what does that show, though? How dirty the hit was, though, or a little difference in the Wild?
Shows the character of the Wild.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to stand up for your team, and it in all circumstances. And the fact that whoever knows whoever, and the fact that you're going to pull them off, and it doesn't matter what player you are and what player is getting pulled off. We're not taking any of it from anybody.
We talked about this early on in the season, though, a little bit. Are they going to suffer from not being tough enough?
I think you're seeing a change because I read today that Cassian was just released from an AHL team. So
Jesus.
the guy that was our tough guy a couple of years ago that we traded off for, I don't know if it was a 4th rounder or something like this. It was just nothing of substance. And now he's gotten released from his AHL team. I mean, you can see that the direction. I mean, Bissonnette doesn't have a team now. I mean, all these tougher 4th-line players don't have a home. So it just shows you the direction that the NHL is going, that they'd rather roll your 4 lines of talent than have some guy that's going to take a spot that's only going to play a few minutes, but he might be able to punch some guy in the face.
How about the goal they scored? I'm sorry. How about the goal the 4th line scored? I mean, it looked like a first-line goal that they scored against the Kings. Cook going to the net in transition. I mean,
and it made Cook almost look kind of. I mean, not Cook, but it made Quick look kind of silly because he kind of sat there and it was like in slow motion. Like the puck was there, he backhanded it, and then Quick just couldn't, get in front of it.
But they're not afraid. I mean, they're not just rolling the 4th line to rest the other guys. I mean, the 4th line goes out and gets opportunity.
We said that before. I mean, we don't have a stereotypical 4th line. I don't know if you can see it's called stereotypical or prototypical anymore because the NHL is evolving to a 4th line that is going to be a contributing line.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody, I bag on Brodziak, I understand. But I mean, if you can roll like a Carter and either a Fontaine or a Zucker and a Cook, I mean, that is not a dog line. I mean, that is a line that has talent, that has that has Stanley Cup experience. I mean, that is going to bring something to the table that we did not have as recent as a couple of years ago.
But what does the league do? Is this going to be like quarterbacks in the NFL? I mean, if you're going to make the whole league about offense and the high flyers and get rid of these 4th line guys that do kind of clog up the game, I don't like that. But who's going to protect the players then? Because the players aren't going to be able to anymore. Do you just change the rules, or do the refs just have to be like the Kessler play? I mean, what should happen to Kessler for making that move at the end of the game?
Well, he got a misconduct. He got a misconduct.
But is that enough? When there's 3 seconds left in the game,
somebody gets hurt, maybe. I mean, Granlund didn't get hurt, obviously, but if it was egregious enough that Granlund got hurt and he's out, I think so. And I think that's where it's going to be the evolution of the player safety. I don't think they did themselves any favor by hiring Pronger, but point being is if you see that and you're going to have people come back and teams come back and say, listen, if this is how we're going to play the game, then we'll basically arm up and we will get the guys that will be the dirty players that will throw the hits. And I don't think that that's where they want to go with it. I think they're going to see a much more exciting brand of hockey with lines that can score. And I think the fan is going to evolve from the mob of the Coliseum, where the people are fighting, to the pretty goals.
Become more sophisticated.
Correct.
It's a Wild Wednesday. It's a special Wild Wednesday on a Tuesday night. We are live just outside the doors of Fan HQ. We're in Ridgedale Mall. And it's been just a fantastic crowd that showed up here to meet and greet Thomas Vanek. Autograph session, photo session. We had him on for a few minutes at the top of the hour. That's the top of the show. We're talking Wild Hockey. It is the Wild Wednesday crew. Tony Dean with the week off. He'll be back next Wednesday. Scott Schweitz, Jason McGovern here with Jeff Dubay. The lines, you mentioned Coyle moving up to the second. I did not see this today. Scott, give me a rundown. What do they look like?
Well, basically, I mean, here's what I think the reasoning behind it is because if we rewind to last year, before Koivu got hurt, you were playing the top line with Parise, Koivu, and Coyle, and they were effective. So I don't know if the mentality is like, hey, Coyle and Koivu once upon a time had success together, and then obviously you're replacing Parise with Vanek, two very skilled players, different players, but skilled players regardless. And maybe Coyle brings an element to the table that's going to be able to open things up, and he's going to be a further playmaker. I don't personally think it makes sense from my perspective. Obviously, I'm not an NHL coach, but for me, I would much more like to see a Nino Niederreiter in there because he is the type of person that is a shoot-first type of a guy, and you have a Koivu in there who is a setup man.
Facilitator.
And then you have Vanek, who I think can do both, like I said earlier. And I think that's what you want. And I think a lot of fans see that too, that they think that you need Nino in a more prominent role that you can score. Now, obviously, do you take him away from Hala? Maybe not. I mean, right now nothing's working the past couple games, but you've also played two great teams. So let's not sound the alarm and blow everything up. I mean, let's see what happens when we play the new Arizona Coyotes, and then we discuss it after that. If they go scoreless after Arizona, then obviously I think that's a further discussion.
And there's a picture of it they're talking about, by the way. Let's guess left, but he did not throw that punch. He looks like he's going to throw that punch to Charlie Coyle, but he does not throw that punch, having him in a completely prone and defenseless position. Backstrom, what'd you think? First time we've seen him in a long time. What'd you think of him Sunday?
I don't think he had a bad game. I mean, considering
percentage looks bad.
Percentage looks bad, of course, but those goals were not garbage goals.
No.
It was not like he was flopping on the ground, and that's my biggest beef with Backstrom. Is typically when he gives up goals, it's because he's flopping around, he gets himself out of position, and he can't recover. That's the biggest problem I have with him. He wasn't doing that. He was playing positional, and the goals that were scored against him were set up nicely. And I think that you see a breakdown of other players that contributed to that, and that can't be on Backstrom. That has to be on other guys.
When you look at the Ducks game, what do you think of the third period? I mean, obviously they took a 1-goal lead into that period. They wound up not getting a point. When you lead going to the third period of the game, you should get a cheap point. I mean, it's tough to get done 2-0 in a period in the NHL in this day and age if you're a good team. But I didn't think they played horribly. I mean, what are your takes on the third period of that Anaheim game?
The third period is the same. I feel the same way about the whole game. I think they played a good, solid game of hockey. They just couldn't score. I mean, that was the biggest thing, is they just couldn't put it in the net. And if they would have scored on a fifth of their chances, we would have won the game. Bottom line.
Are you afraid of that, though, that they're not capitalizing on chances? And I mean, out of 4 games.
How about not just chances? I mean, the fact that the power play. I mean, that's
the scariest aspect.
That's something that I would say that should raise flags, if anything. It's the fact that you're moving the puck well, you're getting, people are taking shots, but you're not putting it in the net. And a couple of them one went off the toe, one was shanked, like I said, was shanked wide, not connecting, but they're cycling the puck well. It's just they're not closing. And I noticed too that they modified the PP to bring back the 4 forwards and the 1 defender. So they did modify that to bring back Koivu back to that power play, and I think they mixed in Vanek to the top power play as well. So they did make some modifications to the power play, considering it wasn't getting done. Now I know, Jeff, you've talked about in the past that Yo likes to mix up lines.
Yeah.
And my biggest fear is, and I sent this out on Twitter today, is I'm hoping that he doesn't make further knee-jerk reactions to the lack of scoring, let things play out. And why I say knee-jerk, like breaking up maybe the top line and reverting back to, Perrin Pominville back with Vanek, seeing if that has chemistry.
Yeah, I'm sure it would.
Do you blow that up, and then who do you put on the top line? Do you throw somebody like a Nino or a Coyle on the top line and see how that goes? I don't know the answer, but I'm just hoping that he lets it play out a little bit longer before he completely blows everything up.
You got to make a move on the power play, though. I understand not messing with the lines in general, but you got to change up the power play.
He did. But he's done that.
Again.
What are you going to do? I mean, who else are you going to interchange at this point? I mean, you have a PP1 and a PP2, and then before, you're going to put 4 line guys on there? I mean, they've rotated about everything from the first to the third line in on the power play.
Is it the strategy of it then, not the lines? Is it their actual strategy on the power play?
I think I'm hoping that it's an anomaly of 2 games. It's an anomaly of 2 games after being off for 6 days, and the fact that you're not doing the right things. You're not capitalizing on your opportunities, and it's what it is. And it turns around on Thursday, and it further turns around on Saturday, and then so on. The guys in the locker room, all the comments I've read is they're no big deal, business as usual. We just lost 2 games. They don't feel anything's wrong. They felt like they played solid games.
They did.
But
with a guy like Quick, I mean, you got to get something greasy. You got to get something to go in off somebody's rear end. I mean, you got to put people in front of the net, take away his eyes, and just hope something bounces in off an elbow. I think you really do.
I think actually Vanek tried to bank it off his back at one point.
I mean, you really have to get lucky sometimes. Not lucky, but you got to get greasy. You got to get a greasy goal once in a while.
Well, and it's tough against a team that does have size and does move you out of the dirty spots. You know, you're not able to camp out in front. I mean,
they got Doughty Green. They got some size back there. Is Green still there?
Parisi, no.
Who they got back there? They got some size.
Oh yeah, but Parisi was just getting abused. I mean, every time he was in front of the net, he was on his face, and a couple of times I was floored that he was not getting some sort of like cross-check penalty where he's taking it on the numbers. I mean, and that goes back to the referees and how they're calling things. For me, that's egregious. I mean, that is an egregious, glaring penalty that they're just not calling.
Well, they've always allowed that stuff in front of them.
They have, but I mean, how hard are you going to let somebody pound somebody in the numbers? I mean, when you knock somebody so hard that they're off their skates and they're landing on their chest, at what point does somebody have to smash their face on the ice and you get a bloody nose that you all of a sudden you're going to, okay, maybe that was too hard.
Well, and Parisi, I mean, the thing is, and not to sit here and turn this into just a Parisi suckathon, but I mean, the guy will go right back. I mean, he'll go right back to the dirty areas. I mean, the guy's, for somebody his size, he's fearless.
Well,
and that's as fearless as it gets.
And that's, I think, why he's the
Captain America,
the unofficial captain of the Minnesota Wild. I mean, see or no see, I mean, let's be honest. He's the leader of that locker.
And we've never talked about that on this show. Does that matter?
No,
because he is the captain.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't matter. And we talked to Lou Nanny about this last year, and he said nobody ever cared who wore the C or the A.
I was kind of hoping.
The only reason it matters for anything is you can go talk to the official in the official crease when they're doling out penalties. He said we know who the leaders are, and we knew who to follow, and we couldn't care less who had the left.
Well, we've stockpiled captains on our team. I mean, we got Parisi, we got Suter, we got Pominville.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you got the hometown captain Koivu.
Yep.
I mean, you have a collection of leaders, and I mean, and even somebody like Vanek, who obviously has had a leadership role.
I'm guessing Heatley wore a letter at one point or another too, somewhere.
You would figure. I mean, I guess bringing it back to the turnaround last year when they had their kind of like private meeting. Somebody like Brizgalov was involved in the meeting, of the player-only leadership meeting. It's like, we got to get this turned around. And I had a buddy of mine tell me that he was at a luncheon with LaPanta, and he kind of explained that turnaround and that the players went to Yo and said, listen, we're taking this on ourselves, and we're basically we're taking responsibility. You keep coaching the way you're coaching because we believe in it. It's on us. And they had the individual meetings with individual players, went in a conference room, basically had a moment where they're like, either we turn this around or this thing's getting blown up again, and we're probably going to have a new coach. So let's figure this out. And it was a turnaround moment. And I mean, so people like Brizgalov, that's kind of pegged as like the goofball, when he's standing up in a leadership role, it's the non-leadership type that I think they have a large amount of. Granted, he's gone, but they have a large amount of in that locker room.
Hey, they wanted to get some guys in the lineup that hadn't played yet, and we saw some defensive pairings that I wasn't anticipating seeing. What'd you think? I mean, you got your first look at Ballard Friday night, and Ballard was paired with Dumba. I thought he would be with. Who else was sitting with? I'm sorry,
Foligno.
Yeah, that he might play with Foligno. That he'd be with somebody else who'd been sitting. What'd you think? I mean, what'd you think of how they paired him up and how guys looked getting their first action of the year?
I personally didn't think Ballard looked good at all. I mean,
he struggled.
If it was me, I would go back to the fact of let's forget the salaries, let's forget whatever, let's find the best pieces that need to be on the ice night in, night out. And I really think that you have to go with the two young guys. You have to go with Dumba and Foligno on that
Foligno
third line.
Was tough. I mean, he was not backing down from anybody.
And he brings a tough element, and Dumba brings that element of offense. And you have to let him have the confidence and let him know, hey, you're going to screw up once in a while. But I think even if he screws up here and there, his upside is so much higher. I mean, I have a reoccurring theme of this, but he has a greater upside than Ballard brings on the safety front. Same thing with Prosser. They got Prosser because they weren't sure how the whole Dumba and Foligno thing was going to kind of hash out at the end of the end of preseason and kind of the camp. But clearly, that last game, they both made a statement that said, you guys are staying here. And at that point, it's too late. I mean, do you throw Prosser back on waivers and then see what happens? I personally wouldn't be heartbroken if that happened.
The show, it's Jeff Dubay Podcast. It's a Wild Wednesday, special Wild Wednesday on a Tuesday night, Ridgedale Mall. Fan HQ. Scott Schweitz, Jason McGovern, Jeff Dubay. We had Thomas Vanek earlier.
There's still a line.
It's impressive. We're 34 minutes in. We got about 25 minutes to go. I believe there's I don't know what the time limit is on the autograph session, but we walked through the door. And I mean, it's like you thought like there was a boy band performing here or something. I mean, I was waiting for
wrapped around the block.
Seriously, I was waiting for like Jordan Knight to come jumping out and act like an idiot. But,
Jordan Knight.
Oh, jeez.
You're dating yourself earlier.
I'm not a young man.
NKOTB reference.
Wow, listen to you.
How do you like that?
That's very impressive. Very
It almost
impressive.
made it worse.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been a great crowd. It's wrapped around the whole concourse of where we're sitting here outside of Fan HQ. For those folks who are not familiar with Fan HQ, fantastic sports apparel store and collectibles. They sell autographs as well as jerseys and things of that nature. Right here, located in Ridgedale Mall. You should stop by and check them out. Next Monday, they've got Levine, the Wolves' first-round draft pick. Zach Levine. I'm not a big NBA guy, but I mean,
are we allowed to talk basketball on a Wild Wednesday?
No, we're not. But I'm trying to pimp the
I get you.
sponsor here. So thanks to Fan HQ for having us out. It's a lot of fun, a hell of an event, and good to reconnect with Thomas Vanek, because we used to call him back in the day. Me and my group of friends must see TV. Because we're pretty clever guys.
Put us in front of a little younger audience too than we're used to. If you noticed.
Well,
I noticed you haven't dropped as many F-bombs as you normally would.
Well,
because
yeah,
we
you're
are
right. You're right. It's a very family crowd.
eight-year-olds.
It's a very family crowd, and I don't have the distraction of the wait staff of Devil's Advocate.
There's still a distraction or two around here.
It's Pardon me. It is more of a family type crowd.
I suppose we're not drinking anything either. I mean, so that's probably contributing to the rated G
approach. I gotta
approach.
go to the bathroom so bad that I think it's starting to kind of clog up my brain a little bit. I'm so in need of a urination. But anyway, so the Wild 2-2 through 4 haven't even played an overtime game. I mean, they won 2 games without giving up the cheap point, then they lost 2 games without giving up the cheap point. When's the last time you saw a 4-game stretch without an overtime?
Well, I mean, I guess it's tough to see the losses, but it's refreshing not to give away that extra point. I mean, it would be nice to receive it, but I mean, I've seen too many of them already in the season that it just, especially in our Central, that it's going to be one of those things where, you know, if you're going to lose, I mean, you're going to need to get that third point really to stay competitive. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, Chicago's doing it. St. Louis is doing it. I mean, because the big story of our conference is just, I mean, the Winnipeg Jets are just atrocious, and I mean, I kind of wish that we would have the Edmonton Oilers back in our Division II.
I thought they were supposed to get good with their young talent.
They are absolutely dog shit. They are the worst team in the NHL.
What happened there, though? They were 2 years ago. I remember hearing all kinds of hype about that.
It's exactly what I said before. I mean, you can draft first rounders all day long, but if you don't have the pieces to the puzzle that connect to make a good team, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, you can have your Nugent Hopkins, and you can have your Neil Yakupov, and you can have
Gagne.
Your Jordan Everly. I mean,
didn't they have Gagne?
No, I think Gagne gone now. I thought Gagne was traded.
Okay, well, I mean, they did.
Gagne, I think Gagne was traded maybe down to Dallas, but nonetheless, I think they have a core of young guys. And last year, I was hearing rumors that Yakupov his agent was lighting a little. Dada. And not appropriate for the children here either. Wait, look at you had to bring it up, and then it was like 5 minutes.
My bad.
Was it 5 minutes?
Our
and then it
responsibility.
happened? But truthfully, it's he was demanding like a trade. I mean, it was like he was so fed up with. I think he got sad a few times, and his ego was crushed, and he turned out to be just a disaster up there. I mean, I'm sure that old Benoit Pouliot's happy that he signed up there.
It is a Wild Wednesday, Tuesday special edition from Ridgedale Mall, Fan HQ, Jeff Dubay, Jason McGovern, Scott Schweitz. I've done like 10 show resets here.
As we talked about not doing it anymore.
Yeah, we're just
everything I mentioned not doing, we do. Maybe I'll just shut up.
The schedule early, pretty intriguing, I think. I mean, you get to home and home with Colorado, which is your playoff rematch and your division champion from a year ago. You get a test of your mettle with the West Coast trip that takes you to Anaheim and LA. That's always a pesky one. Quality teams and so forth. Not to mention a tough road swing. And then you wind up going out east, and you get to see the class. Wouldn't you think kind of the class of the East, Boston, New York? You're not going to see Montreal, I don't believe, on the trip, but you get Boston, New York. I mean, you get a little flavor, you get a little taste of everything here in the early part of this.
Well, yeah, you come home and play, Arizona. You play the Lightning, which that's going to be a test, and then you go out east to get some pretty marquee matchups. I mean that are going to be a test. And
are any of them going to be matinees and throw off the Wild because they can't play 2 hours early?
I believe Boston's at 6, but I mean I think that's on a.
What do you guys think of that excuse? I read Russo or somebody wrote that about them. They would normally have their morning skate at 11:30, and they're playing a game at noon, and that somehow throws them off. And
the fact that you have a day in between, I'm not buying exactly that, but I mean, I will buy into the fact that that's 6 days off. I mean, screwed them
that for sure did. Yes.
But
that's
I will say
abnormal.
There's one later in the schedule where they play a night game and then they play a matinee back to back. Now that I agree will screw with somebody because I mean it takes some time to recover. I mean you're not talking like a beating like a football, an NFL game where you need some time to recover. But I mean the fact you're waking up and then you're immediately having to go to the rink in a different city and do it all over again.
Out of a hotel room. And all that stuff,
that's got to be quite taxing on your body. So maybe not this weekend. No, I'm not buying that. I mean, the only time that matters is for a goaltender. I mean, and I think what Russo was driving at is that you had Backstrom in net, and Backstrom does have a routine. If you know goalies, you've been around hockey long enough, goalies are the weirdest breed of hockey player out there, and they have their absolute needed rituals. Backstrom will wander the bowels of the X before his game. I mean, he'll wander around with his headphones on for X period of time, and he needs to have that sort of a mental prep time. If you don't have that, I mean, does it maybe put you off a little bit? Yeah. Do I think he played awful? I said no. I mean, I don't think it mattered that much.
The more things change, the more they stay the same, at least in the early going when you look at the West. I mean, it's the usual suspects, isn't it, early on? I mean, Anaheim 5-1, Sharks 4-1-1, Kings 4-1-1. I mean, it just seems like it's business as usual. Blackhawks 3-0-1. I am surprised to see the Preds up where they are, but I mean, it seems like business as usual in the West.
Too early in the season to really make a legitimate.
But don't you know those teams are going to be there?
Well, sure, but at the same time, I mean, just wait until you see the results of whether an injury shows up or a scheduling or somebody's on the road for X amount of time or whatever the case is, and get a sample set of longer than a couple weeks, especially when 15 days in the Wild played 2 games. I mean, it was like in that kind of a thing, you don't have a good justifiable comparison to teams across the league.
Hey, with Vanek being kind of the focus of the night here at Fan HQ at Ridgedale Mall for this Wild Wednesday, let's take a quick rundown of newcomers and new faces and what your early impressions have been of each. And let's start with Vanek. We'll get to Carter and some of the blue liners here shortly, but start with Vanek.
I would say the biggest thing that when Vanek was coming in, and I think that in looking at last year and looking at everything, I think from what I've heard, it was a bit of a culture shock for him to come into a team that is as hardworking as the Wild is, that there's a lot of accountability. I mean, you can speak more to when he played for the Gophers, but I mean, players like that, they weren't doing a lot of back checking. Players like Heatley weren't doing a lot of back checking before they came to the Wild, and so I'm sure that there's probably a bit of an eye-opening experience for him to come in and say, I need to be doing the other side of the game and playing the two-way game that maybe I didn't before. The fact that he's done that so quickly means a lot. And it speaks a lot to me that he's started to do that, and I've seen him back check because it does show that he's bought into the system, and I think he'll be just fine. Yeah. I think the goals are going to come. The shots obviously are there.
Did you expect something more on the power play from him? Wasn't that kind of that was my first thought when I heard him coming here. I'm like, there's a body to put in front of the net that can actually put the puck away.
Maybe, but again, we have 4 games in. I mean, 4 games in against a team that we took to the house, and then two teams that we had a little bit of a harder time with. Let's see what happens after a few more weeks and a few more games if they can right the ship. They come back this weekend on a Thursday and Saturday again, and they throw in 6, 7, 8 goals. We're not talking about this anymore. Then it's a complete moot point.
Ryan Carter.
I like Ryan Carter. I like Ryan Carter as a replacement over Brodziak all day long. I mean, Brodziak isn't bringing the defensive characteristics that maybe he had last year. He definitely isn't bringing any offensive characteristics. And being on a 4th line, I think somebody like a Ryan Carter, I personally think brings more to the table.
You don't want to notice Carter, right? Kind of?
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
If you notice him, wouldn't it probably be bad?
Well, I mean, but the 4th line is making an impact. I mean, they're out there controlling the puck, and then they scored even strength goal the other day. I mean, they're They're not just out there to not hurt you.
And I would say exactly right. I mean, I think your fourth line has to be ready to play against another team's more skilled lines, just as your third line does. But at the same point, because it is a different team, you have to be able to notice somebody on a fourth line because you want them to put in, the occasional goal and chew up minutes and do this and that. I think definitely it has to. I don't want to just have somebody be invisible and not even notice that he played the game.
Do you think the line depth can get a little overrated in the NHL today in terms of rolling 4 in a game? Because I don't think you're gonna. If you're rolling 4 and another team's only rolling 3, I don't think you're going to wear them down. Not in the course of one game. I think teams are well conditioned enough that you can play 3 lines and not show the heavy legs. I mean, maybe if you're going multiple overtimes in the postseason, that's one thing.
But isn't it mostly to keep you going through the year longer, to keep your top 3 lines healthier?
I think having a fourth line that you can rely on. But when you take a couple of hits from injury, which you're going to, you got guys that are regular in the lineup that you can just push up into your top 3 lines and not miss the beat that the other teams are going to miss.
That's, I think, the biggest thing is to have that depth and to have the options to be able to plug and play somebody into a different line and then grab somebody from your minor league squad.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if you're putting them on the fourth line or not because it might not be that big of a role. Or at that particular game or two, it changes into that role where you're not playing as many minutes as you were before.
Sure.
But you're really not losing that much depth. Whereas a few years ago, when you had a lot of injuries and Brodziak was, centering the top 2 lines, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, we won't have that anymore because we have enough depth into the minors that we can bring somebody up where he'll never be that guy.
Okay. Well, back to the newcomers and the impacts they're making. 2 of them on the blue line. We'll do Dumba first.
Dumba, I think, is he's as advertised. I think he brings a higher level of offensive defense play, where he's going to be able to step up into the play like a Jared Spurgeon. He might have a little bit to learn still about the defensive responsibilities, whereas if you're going to get up there, just make sure that you're also being able to cover in the neutral zone and not make a play where where you're going to leave a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1. I think that's the biggest thing, but I think again his upside brings far more to the team.
Would you have taken him before Trouba in hindsight?
I didn't know enough about him at that point. I mean, if you would have asked me, I was at the draft when Brodin was drafted, and I said the exact same thing. I'm like, who's this guy? Mm-hmm. We need offense. Why are we drafting a defenseman that nobody's heard of? And look how that turned out.
How about Folin? See, now I'm always fascinated with the college free agent because, it's a number one. It's a free draft pick. More or less, and you know who these guys are as the season's going on. You know which team is going to have scouts sitting outside the locker room waiting for an NCAA tournament loss. With a contract in hand. The undrafted guys are they're freebies. They're just there for the taking. And you knew that's how it was going to be a couple years ago with Nate Schmidt, for instance. Nate Schmidt, a really offensively skilled puck-moving defenseman with a big shot. You knew the minute the Gophers lost the NCAA tournament, there were going to be scouts, GMs, whatever, assistant GMs in the hallway, outside the locker room with contract in hand. And Folin was one of those guys last year. I don't know. In an age where the NHL looks so hard for big, physical, mobile defensemen, I don't know how this guy flew under the radar as long as he did.
And I'm glad he did. Truth be told, because I'm glad we got him. And I think that when I saw him last year, he played the one game, and I believe it was against the Blues, and he had a phenomenal game. Looked absolutely NHL ready. Looked like he was not out of place whatsoever. I think he just needs to be a regular addition or a regular player in the lineup to really show what he has to offer, and he does bring that size to the equation. And I think you saw that before when he stands up to a guy. And we need that. I think we need that on the back end. Suter has size, but he doesn't play that type of role. Other than that, we don't have that. Mm-hmm. We have a Scandella who does have size, but I think between Scandella and Folin, you need to have a defenseman that is going to play to their size.
Before we wrap it up, your level of Well, the level of importance, I don't want to say level of surprise. I think you're a Kemper believer, but how important was it that he got off to a good start, his first 3 starts this year? I mean, because he is a guy who he can rise and fall with the confidence as much as any goaltender in the league, I think.
I would say I think that between last year at the end and between the playoffs, I think that we are I want to say we're past the confidence for him. I think that he's had enough time in the NHL to understand that you're going to have losses, that things are going to happen. You saw early off when we were up in Canada on that stretch when he got destroyed, and he really took it to heart and had a rough time with it. I think his confidence is there, and he knows what he can do and knows what he's capable of. And I really think it's the team surrounding him that's gonna further and reinforce that, and that he knows that there's always going to be somebody waiting, even though he's not signed to the team. I mean, they know that Briz is just waiting for the call, so he knows he has to keep his level of play up.
Hey, Sean's stepping in here. Sean Hagelin, he's a great guy, and he's the owner-operator here of Fan HQ. I just wanted to get a chance to stroke the business. I mean,
thank you guys for coming out.
Tell folks about what you do here. I mean, you're a sports apparel and collectible store right here in Ridgedale Mall, Minnetonka. You and I have done business in the past.
Yep.
I've sold some stuff to you.
Yeah.
And you always treat it fairly, always treat it with respect. Hell of an event here. Just go. Yeah, man, I'm giving you a free mic here.
It's great. No, it's a great event. This is the fun
business.
part of the business, is getting these guys to come out. We get people out to the store, give them a chance to meet some of the players that they wouldn't get to meet regularly. So it's great. This is the fun part.
You got a nice event coming up a week from yesterday, the 27th, correct?
Yeah, we've got Zach Levine is going to come out and sign autographs, and then down the road even a little further, we just confirmed that Justin Morneau is going to be back for his coat drive on November 29th. So
outstanding.
We'll be ramping that up too.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, if there's anything else we can do to be a part of things, let us know, because it's been a lot of fun, and like I said, you and I have known each other for years. So.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for coming out. Come up to St. Cloud. We just opened a store there.
Did you really?
Yeah, Crossroads. So Harrison Smith is going to be there on November 18th.
Very cool. Well, be careful if you get Gallardi in there for a signing.
I was thinking about it.
He gets a little salty from time to time. He might get a little racist once in a while.
Keep that in mind.
Just be careful. We had to hit the dump button once. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, so Zach Levine here next Monday, and then a couple days after that.
November 18th will be Harrison Smith, and November 29th will be Justin Morneau's coat drive.
Outstanding. Should we go? You want to go up to St. Cloud and do Harrison Smith at the Fan HQ in St. Cloud?
There you go.
I don't know if I believe him.
He'll be happy.
I don't know if I believe him. All right. Hey, thanks for having us,
so
Sean.
much.
It was
Thanks
a lot
for
of fun.
coming, guys.
A lot of fun. That's Sean Hagelin. He's the owner-operator at Fan HQ in Ridgedale. Sports collectibles, sports apparel, very cool place. And he put the whole event together tonight with Thomas Vanek. I want to say hi to our friend Tony Dean. We'll look forward to having him back next Wednesday. That's going to do it for a very special Wild Wednesday on this Tuesday. Cut it a couple minutes short because I just got a pee so bad you wouldn't believe it. What's it like? Strange Brew? I got a pee so bad I could taste it, man. Inside the vat. Come on, tell me you saw Strange Brew.
Take off, hoser.
I got a piece so bad I could taste it, man. Thanks to Jason McGovern, Sean Bernard. Rusty Gatenby was around here lurking somewhere. You'd think I'd see him because his head's so damn big.
Rusty bailed.
Oh, he bailed. See him? I would have seen him if he was still here. Thanks to Scott Schweitz again for carrying the show. It's a Wild Wednesday. We'll be back next Wednesday from Devil's Advocate. Thanks again to Fan HQ.